Let's just jump right in, shall we? So, neither confidence nor leadership are easy or simple, but we're going to try and make them as practical and applicable as we can without oversimplifying them or providing generic, easy answers. So, to do that, we're going to talk about the role of leadership, the confidence in leadership, what it is and what it isn't, the three deaths of the modern leader, the keys to leading with confidence, and strategies that create confidence. So confident leaders make us feel safe. They allow us to trust them. They're willing to make calculated risks. They share successes. They accept accountability, and they inspire others. When self-doubt and insecurities are minimized, leaders have the mental bandwidth to provide employees with the attributes that will inspire good work, better collaboration, more innovation, higher performance, and continuous improvement. It's also important to address the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. Self-confidence is how confident you are in your abilities or skills, and self-esteem relates to how you feel about yourself. You cannot like yourself but trust your skills, or you cannot trust your skills but think really highly of yourself. It's important to understand those differences. Now, as important as confidence is, it's not nearly as abundant as it should be. Across the world, only 15% of managers are confident in their leaders' ability to deliver on organizational goals. Many people who work under senior leadership are not sure if they have complete faith in their leader, which will severely impact the leader's self-confidence to lead. Which tracks as half of our leaders are not completely confident themselves in their ability to lead. And this is where we seem to be. Many of those leading are not confident in how equipped they are to lead, and many more are not confident in their leader's ability. So the question is, how do we get here? Well, 59% of managers report having received no training at all. That's no leadership development, no effective management courses, no onboarding to their new position, and no coaching or mentoring into their new role. The majority of our leadership are thrown into the deep end and expected to swim at an Olympic level without preparation. A lot of this has to do with how and why people get promoted. One of the most common reasons for being promoted into management is due to technical proficiency. Someone is really good at their job and has excellent skill sets for their work, so they get promoted into management. But the challenge is, in this new role, their technical skills that they show proficiency in are not as relevant, and they are expected to be successful in this new job as they were in their old job. Except this new management job requires a vastly different skill set than the one they excelled in.
I just want to jump in for a second, Kobe. And I should have mentioned I'll be interjecting from time to time just to add clarification or a little bit more information.
Turn the camera on?
Sure. So this is actually a really interesting point, and it's one of the most common pieces that we hear about when we're doing follow-up sessions with folks. That the stat about the number of people who never receive management training, and the fact that people are promoted due to their technical skills and how long they've been with the company rather than their management abilities. These are actually two of the most common, the biggest aha moments that we hear about from people. So I want to throw it out to those of you who are watching and just ask, do you see this happening in your workplace? Just throw a Y in the chat for yes, that you see this is happening, or an N if no, you don't see it happening. And we'll take those responses both on Zoom and YouTube.
Yeah, thanks, James. So the thing is that unless people are trained and given the opportunity to develop their management skills or the skills that they will need, most managers will default back to the tasks they already have proficiency in, which is why we have a lot of managers getting into the weeds and having a hard time letting go. We are good at training our technical staff to do their job well, So why is it we are less committed to training our management staff to have the same confidence and proficiency? Now, 67% of women said they need more support building confidence to feel like leaders. The lack of management and skill training and support to create confident leadership is far worse for women. And this is what we in workforce development call the confidence gap. And this is extremely important to talk about, and especially today, which is International Women's Day, because this barrier, the confidence gap, is a barrier to progression and promotion in the workplace that is caused by systems that reinforce gender inequality. So women score higher than men on 84% of leadership competencies, yet young women's confidence lags behind young men's confidence in the workplace. And despite the data showing that women have an advantage over men in many leadership qualities, they show less confidence in their ability to lead. And this may have a lot to do with the lack of support for leadership and management training that is provided, or rather not provided, when people get promoted. So clearly, organizations need to do more to provide support and training to build confident leaders, especially in women. Now, let's talk about some of the misconceptions that come with understanding confidence in leadership. So the first is that confidence is knowing you're always right. This is completely incorrect. Being right or wrong is irrelevant to true confidence. What does matter is the ability to be okay with being wrong. Having the self-assurance to admit mistake or to ask for help is an actual sign of confidence. Needing to be right and not admitting mistake or fault is a clear sign of a lack of confidence. Now, number two is that confidence is loud and showy. Well, the truth is, confidence doesn't care about showing off. If you're outgoing and extroverted, then that will affect how you show self-confidence. But if you're low-key and introverted, then that will affect how you show it. Confidence does not have a single look. And the third is that confidence requires attention. But really, quite the opposite is true, in fact. Real self-confidence is more likely to create humility than seek attention. If you're confident and self-assured, then external validation should be less important. If you're mimicking confidence or overcompensating for a lack of confidence, then the external validation is required to feel confident. Now, those misconceptions about confidence often allow it to be mistaken for arrogance. Now, the difference between the two, confidence and arrogance, can be easily summed up by psychologist and body language expert Amy Cuddy. She says that confidence is a tool where arrogance is a weapon. She also says that confidence invites people in and arrogance pushes people away. People use arrogance as a wall to prevent others from challenging them, often as a way to defend a lack of confidence. Now, Amy Cuddy is someone that many people who may have heard of if they've been looking into building confidence. She has an extremely popular TED Talk on power poses and using body language to build confidence. She's often been cited as a major advocate for the old expression, fake it till you make it. Now, that's not something I'm completely on board with, but we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, let's talk a little more about what confidence is. Now, confidence is about feeling like you can handle the situation you are in or about to be in. What makes people feel like they can handle situations can come from different places. When it's a familiar situation, our experience can give us a peace of mind that we are able to be successful because we were successful in the past, or at least we know what not to do. In unfamiliar situations, we can use a system to guide us through the unfamiliar territory, allowing us to use transferable knowledge or abilities to help fill in the gaps. This is easily seen in how we approach everyday activities. So for example, let's say you needed to get to the airport. If you've been there before, you can be confident that you will find it again because you did in the past. But if you haven't been there before, you can use a GPS as your system to guide you, and the knowledge that the airport will have signs to direct you. Now, this is all that real confidence is: the trust that we have in ourselves to handle what is in front of us. So now that we know what confidence is and what it isn't, let's talk about what happens when we do not lead with confidence. Leading with confidence is extremely essential in today's world. A common bad habit that many leaders fall into is relying too heavily on their confidence coming from familiar situations and experiences. When we rely too heavily on what is familiar or only on what worked in the past, then we risk losing confidence in new and unfamiliar situations. This is also where we can again talk about fake it till you make it. The problem with this idea is that we are supposed to fake the confidence that comes from experience, placing the value on pretending we are experienced until we actually become experienced. This is not how we create true confidence. This is actually how we create the imposter syndrome, where we feel like a fraud in our current role. And this can actually make achieving confidence from experience exceedingly more difficult. Relying too much on the past and what it was familiar can make you far more susceptible to what we call the 3 deaths of the modern leader. So what are the 3 deaths of the modern leader, you may ask? Well, let's take a look at some real life examples from some of our past clients with just the names and settings changed. The first is self-sabotage. This is when we get in our own way and sacrifice our long-term success in order to maintain our short-term comfort. Self-sabotage can come in many shapes and forms. It can be a desire to not acknowledge a change or a problem and maintain the course, or ignore the problem and hope that it goes away. Or it can be to a reliance on your comfort zone or your experiences and a desire to stick with what you know and prioritize maintaining that short-term comfort. Self-sabotage commonly presents as procrastination and protecting your comfort zones. So let's dig into self-sabotage and meet Sally. So Sally is the executive director of a large crown corporation. Sally was hired to get the organization off the ground and manage the administrative side of incorporation. She was excellent at getting the organization off the ground and running. Now, it was after the incorporation stage, when she needed to start creating projects and partnerships, that she started to have some issues. She would prioritize the more administrative tasks rather than hire staff, start projects, and build partnerships. Now, her board would continually encourage her to hire someone to manage the administrative work so that she could dedicate her time to growth and expansion. However, her preoccupation with the tasks and administrative responsibilities was making Sally start to neglect her more pressing priorities and allowing her to delay or even ignore the strategic direction from her board. Now, this is when we were hired to work with Sally to optimize the organization's HR and operational structure. We also began to coach Sally on how to hire and delegate to people that she could trust. We were able to intervene with Sally early enough that her self-sabotage of sticking with the familiar, her comfort zone with the administrative work, didn't ruin her credibility and long-term success. We were able to help her become confident with the unfamiliar. So next, let's take a look at self-preservation. Now, we typically think of self-preservation as an absolute good. I need to protect myself from risk and harm, not just for me, but for those who depend on me. While it's very true that we shouldn't put ourselves into harm's way and take unnecessary risks, we need to see self-preservation less as our primary objective and more as existing on a spectrum. On the beneficial side of the spectrum, we have actions like self-care, risk mitigation, and preserving our feelings of safety and security. However, on the negative side of the spectrum, we have actions like being selfish, apathetic towards others, avoiding risks, and saving face. When it comes to leadership, it's critical to find a balance with self-preservation. You need to be sure to take care of your personal and financial future, as well as your safety and your security. But on the other hand, as a leader, you need to be willing to take risks, be wrong, make mistakes, have hard conversations, accept blame, and make unpopular decisions. Self-preservation commonly presents as a preoccupation with approval or making popular decisions. So, to dig into self-preservation, let's meet Jim. So Jim is the new CAO of a small municipality. Jim came from the private sector, and the council was excited for what a fresh perspective could bring. So Jim was very enthusiastic to get started and to shake things up and modernize the municipality. One of the problems that started to present was Jim not fully understanding the difference between the public and private sector. Jim started making mistakes and overlooking the common practices, blaming staff if he was found out. He soon stopped trying to do anything new if it was remotely controversial or had any opposition. He would quickly point fingers if anything went wrong and throw his staff under the bus. Now, we were hired by the council to help Jim with the transition when he was first hired. Part of our role was to help Jim get used to the pressures of the public sector and to lead his new team through the transition. Unfortunately, Jim started to hide his issues from us. We were there to help him, but he was worried that we were there to actually report all of his mistakes back to the council. So he went to great lengths to save face around us and practically threatened his staff to not to talk to us. Unfortunately, we weren't able to help Jim. He ended up taking stress leave after only a few months, and ultimately he quit. Now, this is not unexpected with people dealing with self-preservation. Protecting yourself, sacrificing others, and being paranoid about your reputation can be exhausting and lonely. Spending all or most of your mental energy protecting your job does not actually leave much time left to actually do your job. So let's take a look at the last, but perhaps most common death of the modern leader. Micromanagement. Now, according to the book, My Way or the Highway, The Micromanagement Survival Guide by Harry Chambers, 79% of people have experienced micromanagement in their jobs. 85% of micromanagement negatively impacted their morale. 91% of managers are unaware that employees are changing their jobs because of micromanagement style and behaviors. When bosses and managers feel out of their depth, it creates a need to scrutinize and inspect everything the team does. If they can't handle the pressure and responsibility, then they project those feelings onto their staff. This comes from a lack of trust in one's ability to delegate, causing a need for control. Basically, being comfortable with doing the work and not being comfortable with empowering others to do the work. So to ensure the work gets done right, they need to constantly monitor the work or do it themselves. Now, micromanagement commonly presents as a lack of trust and a need to constantly supervise employees. Now, the micromanager sees the problem as they can't trust their staff. They see it as a staffing issue. The staff are incompetent. They're not motivated. They're not trustworthy. The reality is that micromanagement actually comes from a lack of self-confidence in their ability to empower and lead their teams. It's easier to process our insecurities outward rather than accept them and deal with them inward. So let's meet Dina. Dina is the acting CEO of the Transportation Authority. Dina, who was the operations manager, stepped into acting CEO when the former CEO retired. Dina was very organized and proficient with her work and was committed to becoming the permanent CEO. Now, the CEO's core team was extremely skilled and used to working independently. Dina knew that this was her shot to prove her ability to lead, causing her to keep a very firm hand on everything the team was doing. This severely stifled the core team's ability to work, causing massive disengagement and a number of letters of resignation after only a few months. The announcement of several resignations within the team, which to that point had been a close and highly effective group, caused the organization to reach out to us before they officially hired the new CEO. We did an organizational review and determined that Dina could become a great CEO, but was not ready and needed more training and support in order to lead. We approached the old CEO, and they were willing to come back for a one-year term, largely as a mentor to support Dina's leadership development. The shift allowed the team to give the organization a second chance, and many of the resignation letters were retracted. After only a year of Dina in the acting CEO role, under the mentorship of the old CEO, she had a much smoother transition into the full role. Now, the main cause of the 3 deaths are when we do not feel confident in our ability to lead, when we do not trust our ability to handle what's in front of us, especially the new and unfamiliar. This causes us to overly rely on our experience, our comfort zones, on only making the popular decision, on ensuring that we save face, on seeking complete control and doing the work ourselves. This fundamental breakdown is about not having a system to help us deal with the new and unfamiliar. A system will help us take our success and experiences and find some aspects that will transfer and then apply them to a strategy that will allow us to handle what is in front of us. So let's talk about a system. A good system needs 3 aspects: strategy, preparation, and action. Now, a system requires a strategy, a framework to guide you. For example, if you were managing a new project in a new market, a strategy like the project management principles would be your guide. They would give you the framework of what you need to do to know, acquire, deliver, etc. Now, we need to prepare. This is about giving ourselves the time to create comfort with the new and finding uses for the transferability of our past experiences. Now, this could be anything. In our previous example about going to the airport, this could be about taking some time before your trip to play around with your GPS to get used to using it. In the project management example I just gave, this could be like researching the new market that you're going into, learning about its customer base, but also looking for aspects that you already know. Things like your existing product knowledge or your current contacts who can introduce you to people in the new market, that kind of thing. Preparation helps us place trust in our new system. Now, it's also important to be aware at this point of self-sabotage. When comparing your past to your new situations, you can overly rely on your experiences, forcing them to fit where they really won't. Also, be careful not to spend too much time on the preparation. It's important to move beyond the prep stages. This is another self-sabotage tactic, procrastinating the action and never leaving the preparation process. We call this analysis paralysis. And then we need to act. We need to put our system into practice. This involves moving forward without completely knowing everything, being aware that you may need to pivot or readjust, possibly even start over, and you may even fail. Why confidence is so important to implementation is the willingness to accept the consequences of actually doing something. If you need to avoid self-preservation and accept responsibility for failure, or make the unpopular decision to start over. The key to every individual being able to lead with confidence is to find a framework that you can use to build your system on. So to help with that, we have a framework that could work for you. It's called Integrity Leadership. And it's a framework that allows leaders to filter their decisions, judgments, actions, and initiatives. It requires having some confidence to implement, but continually builds confidence in its application. So integrity leadership has 5 domains. The first is reliable respect, providing a fair, consistent, and dependable level of respect to all people, regardless of their position or status. Reliable respect allows others to always know that your thoughts, efforts, and actions are coming from a place of authenticity and empathy. Next is moral courage. This is being brave enough to do the right thing, even when it's not popular. It can be appealing, but never a good idea to sacrifice doing what's right in order to do what's easy. And this is why it's important to have the courage to be unpopular, to make the hard decisions, and to face challenges head on. When others see that you have the courage to make the moral choice and not merely the easy choice, it inspires loyalty and trust. Next is honest acknowledgement. This is about having the confidence to acknowledge the efforts and contributions, as well as the perspectives and opinions of others. Being honest and properly recognizing others when they have assisted you and sharing the credit is essential for leading with integrity, as well as being able to honestly acknowledge the value of opinions and perspectives that you may not agree with. It's also about being honest and acknowledging your own shortcomings and your own mistakes. Then there's trustworthy influence. This is about treating the responsibility and authority that you've been provided in a way that allows others to trust you and for you to trust them. Creating a sense of duty to the obligation of the position that you are in and the power that you've been provided. Others need to know that the influence that you've been provided will be respected and that you will not lead them astray. Trustworthy influence is about how you wield power. And when influence is filtered through integrity, you create the transparent leadership that we all crave. And last is empowering others, valuing those who you are responsible for and providing them what they need to be successful. Employees and those who you lead are the priority. Their success is the indication of your success. So when you can filter the unfamiliar territory of leadership through a framework like integrity, then what you need to do is clear and easier to be confident in. You can build trust in your ability to handle what is in front of you when the system that you have guides your decisions. So for example, we had a client named Maria. She worked in a very political, highly pressured position, leading a regional team. We were coaching her on developing her leadership skills through integrity leadership. She would often bring her challenging decisions and situations to our coaching sessions. We would help her choose the best option by filtering everything through the framework of integrity leadership. When she had to make hard or potentially unpopular decisions, we would talk to her about the domain of moral courage and the value of consistently doing what's right, not just what's easy. When she would have success and be praised, she would become more and more committed to honest acknowledgement and ensuring that the contributions of others were never overlooked. When she would deal with the challenging or difficult staff or coworkers, we would talk about the importance of reliably being respectful. When others are not at their best, her consistency allowed others to come to her and have the peace of mind knowing she will always show them respect. This framework gave her the confidence to handle the unfamiliar. Now, leaders are not born, they're made. And as we stated earlier, 59% of managers do not receive management training. This is not something that the modern workplace can allow to continue. Organizations need to start investing in their leaders. Current and future leaders need to have the confidence to advocate for support of their development. So to aid you in that, we have another framework that might help. One of the best ways to advocate for change or support is to use the strategy of the financial or business case when trying to get buy-in from senior leadership or to justify the need for a change or more support. Now, labor value loss is the financial toll on a business or organization due to common labor problems. most of which can be directly tied to poor leadership. So let's look at a few common labor problems and the toll they take on our business. The first is turnover. Now, 57% of employees quit because of their boss. And according to the Center for American Progress, turnover costs 20% of an employee's salary. That's 2,000 for every 10,000. Next is a bad hire. Only 19% of new hires are considered fully successful. And according to the US Department of Labor, a bad hire costs 30% of an employee's salary per year. So that's 3,000 for every 10,000. Leaders who are not trained or supported in how to recruit, develop, and delegate to new employees will often result in the employees being deemed a bad hire, which can often make managers be the cause of bad hires. And last is disengagement. A manager or supervisor directly influences a shocking 70% of an employee's motivation and engagement. According to Kirk Kaufman and Dr. Gabriela Gonzalez Moreno from Gallup, 34% of an employee's salary is lost due to disengagement per year. Ineffective leadership is by far the biggest cause of employee disengagement.
I just want to jump in for a second again, Kobe, because I think it's important to stress on this slide in particular that the quote that you have there, that a manager or supervisor directly influences a shocking 70% of employees' motivation and engagement. This is one of the other, this is probably the second biggest thing that really stands out to people when we're doing follow-ups, when we're having these follow-up consultations. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier with managers getting into the weeds and micromanaging and not realizing how much that influences disengagement in their teams and in the workplace, and just how insanely costly disengagement actually is for an organization. So I just wanted to really stress that point and throw it out to the group again. When it comes to ineffective leadership being the cause of employee engagement, do you see this play out in your workplace? Is this something that you've seen where managers are getting into the weeds and it's crushing morale? So throw a yes or no into the chat, either here on Zoom or on YouTube, and I'll stop interrupting you for now.
All right. Thanks, James. So all of this data can help managers, HR professionals, and new and existing leaders present the business case to their organization to invest in their leadership development by explaining that the organization is now and will continue to lose money if leadership is not properly trained and supported. We've seen a number of new and existing leaders have success with using the business case to create buy-in for change. Whether they were business owners looking to justify their own development or managers trying to get buy-in from those who they report to. So for example, we were working with an HR manager from a large agri-food business. He and other managers had a real lack of support from the ownership on their investment into their leadership development. So we suggested that the HR manager take one of our courses. It's called Rethinking Labor Costs, Improving Profits and Productivity. The short 1-hour course explains labor value loss in all out detail and presents the information on these issues listed here, as well as absenteeism and presenteeism. So he was able to actually use the calculator tool that's provided in that course and to actually calculate the labor value loss for each division in his organization and the organization as a whole. So he was able to take that information back to the other managers, and they made the business case to ownership on why they should all receive leadership training. And a few months later, they were all enrolled in a management training focused on employee motivation and engagement. So If you want to get help and support to avoid self-sabotage, resist self-preservation, stop micromanagement, end labor value loss, create a more productive and effective workplace that's led by integrity, and learn more about management and leadership training opportunities, then book a free 30-minute strategy session with us. We will work with you to understand your unique situation and create a plan that is customized to fit your specific needs. The result of our conversation with you will be a customized plan. Frequently, plans include clear goals, free resources, steps to generate buy-in for change, and where your small wins are going to come from. Our chat with you is just a no pressure, no commitment required conversation. So James will share a link with you so you can book your free session and not miss out. So that's all for us. I want to thank you all, and I hope that something in our talk today will really resonate with you.